After my daughter's funeral, her husband closed the front door in my face and said, "You have 24 hours to get out of my house, old man. When I'm done with the lawyer, you will not have a penny left." 3 weeks later, I sat across from that same lawyer and watched Jason's smile die in slow motion. Tell me, what would you do if your son-in-law promised to throw you into the street after you buried your only child? Stay with me until the end and tell me if I went too far. Share what you think, because sometimes the only thing standing between justice and revenge is one decision. My name is Frank Miller. I am 71 years old, a retired electrician from Dayton, Ohio, and a widower of 9 years. I had one child, my daughter Lily, and a grandson named Ethan, who used to think I hung the moon. After Lily died, I thought grief would be the worst pain I would ever know. I was wrong. The worst pain came from the man she married. Lily met Jason Reynolds 10 years ago at a fundraiser for the hospital where she worked as a nurse. He was charming in a way that made people forget to ask real questions. Expensive watch, easy smile, a job in finance that no one could quite explain. I saw the cracks early, missed payments, whispered phone calls, the way Lily's eyes tightened when Jason walked into a room late smelling like cologne that wasn't hers. But she loved him, and I didn't want to be the bitter old man who ruined his daughter's happiness. When Ethan was born, Jason convinced Lily they needed a bigger house. The bank only approved them because I co-signed and put down most of the down payment. "My name went on the deed, just for security," Lily said, pressing the pen into my hand. At the time, I thought I was helping them start their life. I did not realize I was also building the only weapon I would have left one day. Then the accident happened. A drunk driver ran a red light one rainy Friday in October. Lily never made it out of the operating room. I still remember the smell of hospital disinfectant mixing with coffee in that silent waiting area, the clock ticking as if it resented every second it had to keep going without her. Jason sat with his head in his hands. Ethan was at a neighbor's house, and I just stared at the doors, waiting for someone to tell me this was a mistake. She was 34. The funeral was a blur of flowers and people whose names I never learned. Ethan clung to my suit jacket and kept asking when his mom would wake up. Jason cried at all the right moments, hugged all the right relatives, and said all the right words. But his eyes were dry by the time we got back to the house that night. It was around 10 in the evening when everything changed. I was in Lily and Jason's kitchen, still wearing my black suit, rinsing coffee cups and stacking paper plates. The house smelled like lilies and casseroles, that strange scent of grief and obligation. Jason walked in, tie loosened, eyes bright with something that was not sadness anymore. "You done?" he asked. I thought he meant with the dishes. "Almost. I'll finish and then I'll go lie down. Ethan fell asleep in your room. I told him I'd be right down the hall if he needed me." Jason's lips curled like I'd insulted him. "That's the thing, Frank. You're not going to be right down the hall. You're not going to be here at all." I turned off the faucet. "What are you talking about?" "This is my house now," he said, stepping closer. "Lily is gone. You're a guest, and the visit is over. You can stay tonight because of Ethan, but by tomorrow I want you out. And don't get too comfortable with your money either. Once I meet with the lawyer, we're going to sort out her estate. You'll be lucky if you can afford a cheap nursing home." The room tilted. "Jason, I've been helping you with this house for years. My name is on paper," he cut in, "and paper can be changed. You're old. You forget things. You sign things without reading them. Courts love that narrative. I've talked to people who know how this works. It won't be hard to show you're not exactly competent with finances." He leaned in so close I could smell the whiskey on his breath. "You have two choices, Frank," he said softly. "Walk away now with whatever scraps you have left, or fight me and lose everything. Either way, you're out of this house and Ethan is staying with me. You're not dragging my son into your broke little retirement." My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. "You mean my grandson?" He smiled then, slow and cruel. "No, I mean my son." I searched his face for grief and found only calculation. You're doing this the night we buried your wife? I asked. His expression hardened. Don't call her that. She was my wife, not yours. Your part in her life is over. Don't make me prove it in court. For a moment I thought I might hit him. 71 or not, I had worked with my hands all my life, muscles built from years of lifting ladders and cable spools. But Ethan was asleep upstairs, and Lily was in the ground. Violence would not bring her back. I swallowed the anger like broken glass. I'll be gone in the morning, I said quietly. Good, Jason replied. Oh, and Frank, when you talk to the lawyer, remember this. Lily wouldn't want you making trouble. She'd want peace. So do the right thing and sign what they tell you to sign, then disappear. I left the next day with 2 suitcases and a framed photo of Lily holding newborn Ethan, her hair messy, eyes glowing with exhaustion and joy. Jason tried to take even that, saying it was a family picture, but I held on to it so tightly my knuckles turned white. He finally shrugged and let it go, as if granting a favor to a beggar. I moved back to my small bungalow across town, the one I'd kept after my wife died. The house felt different now. Smaller. Quieter. I sat in my old recliner that first night, Lily's picture on my lap. And for the first time since the accident, I cried. Not the silent tears I'd let slip at the funeral, but deep shaking sobs that hurt my ribs. I thought of Ethan asking when his mom would wake up. I thought of Jason's voice saying cheap nursing home. I thought of how easily he used my grief as a weapon. I did not sleep much. 3 days later, the lawyer called. Mr. Miller, this is David Barnes, the voice on the line said. I'm Lily Reynolds' attorney. She listed you as an emergency contact and primary trustee. We need to discuss her will and some other documents she signed last year. Are you able to come in this week? Trustee. The word hung in the air like the echo of a distant bell. Yes, I said slowly. I can come in. We met in a quiet office on the 8th floor of a brick building downtown. There were framed degrees on the wall, shelves of thick law books, and a box of tissues on the mahogany desk. Mr. Barnes was in his 50s, gray at the temples, glasses low on his nose. He shook my hand with a steady grip and offered his condolences. Lily spoke about you often, he said. She admired you a great deal. I nodded, unable to trust my voice. He opened a folder with Lily's name on the tab. Your son-in-law is expecting to meet regarding the estate this afternoon, he said. Before that happens, there are things you need to know. Do you remember when Lily had her scare 2 years ago? The ectopic pregnancy? I remembered. The emergency surgery, the week in the hospital, the way Lily had looked at me afterward and said, Dad, I'm not as invincible as I thought. After that, Barnes continued, she came to see me. She wanted to update her will, create a trust for Ethan, and change several beneficiary designations. She was concerned about Jason's financial habits. I let out a bitter laugh. She wasn't wrong. Barnes slid a stack of documents across the desk. Your daughter created the Ethan Miller Family Trust, he said. You are the primary trustee. Upon her death, all of her assets, including her share of the house, her life insurance, and her investment accounts, move into this trust. Jason has no direct access. He can request funds for Ethan's care, but only with your approval and documentation. Furthermore, if Jason attempts to challenge the will or the trust in court, he forfeits any claim to the assets and his parental fitness can be reviewed under a clause she insisted on adding. My jaw tightened. Reviewed how? Barnes adjusted his glasses. Lily was not only thinking about money. She left a written statement detailing incidents of Jason's gambling, verbal abuse, and one physical altercation she documented with photographs but never reported to the police. She asked that these be used only if necessary to protect Ethan. My hands shook as I picked up the papers. Lily's handwriting stared back at me on the final page. "If you are reading this, Dad," she had written, "it means I am gone and Jason is about to make a mess. Please protect Ethan. Please don't let Jason charm you into giving him everything. I am so sorry to put this on you, but I trust you more than anyone in this world." My vision blurred. Barnes waited while I wiped my eyes. "So what does Jason get?" I finally asked. "Under the terms of the trust?" Barnes flipped a page. "He has the right to live in the marital home with Ethan, rent-free, for as long as he remains Ethan's primary caregiver, provided he allows you reasonable access to your grandson and does not attempt to remove you from the home. There is also a specific clause Lily requested." He read it aloud. "If Jason ever orders my father out of the house, denies him access to Ethan, or threatens to interfere with his financial security, he forfeits any residential rights. At that point, my father, as co-owner and trustee, may sell or reclaim full possession of the property and determine Ethan's living arrangements in his best interest." I sat very still. "She thought of everything," I whispered. Barnes nodded. "She did. She came back 3 times to tweak that paragraph." I remembered Jason's words in the kitchen. "This is my house. You have 24 hours to get out. When I'm done with the lawyer, you will not have a penny left." "Mr. Barnes," I said quietly, "what happens if I can prove he said exactly those things?" "That would trigger the clause," he replied. "Do you have proof?" "No," I admitted, "but I have Ethan, and I know Jason. Give me some time." He watched me carefully. "Frank, I must remind you, our goal is Ethan's safety, not revenge." "I understand," I said, "but sometimes justice and revenge walk the same road for a while, don't they?" Barnes did not answer. He just closed the folder and set it aside. That night I did something I had not done since my days as a young serviceman. I started a notebook. On the first page I wrote, "For Ethan." Underneath, I began making lists. Jason's debts I knew about. Times he'd borrowed money and never paid it back. Stories Lily had told me in confidence about late-night arguments and misplaced paychecks. Names of neighbors who had seen things. Patterns. Habits. I also wrote one more word at the top of the page, in letters large enough to fill the space. Patience. Because as much as I wanted to storm back into that house and drag Jason out by his expensive collar, I knew the law would not be kind to an old man acting on rage. I needed Jason to show his true face to other people, to the court, to Ethan, to himself. For 3 weeks, Jason kept Ethan away from me. He ignored my calls, my texts, the knock on his door when I drove across town and stood on the porch like a stranger. At first he made excuses. "Ethan is with a friend. He's sick. We're busy." But eventually, he stopped answering entirely. On the 23rd day after Lily's death, an envelope arrived in my mailbox. Inside was a letter from Jason's lawyer, a man named Ryan Cooper, informing me that Jason intended to review all estate documents and ensure an equitable distribution of assets, and address the matter of co-ownership of the marital home, as Mr. Miller's mental and financial state may no longer support such a responsibility. I read that line 3 times. Mental and financial state. My hands went cold. At the bottom of the letter, there was a date and time. "We request your presence at our office on November 19th at 3 p.m. Underneath, in Jason's handwriting, someone had added, "Be a good boy and sign what they tell you, Frank. This doesn't have to be difficult." That was the moment something inside me hardened. I called David Barnes. "It's time," I said. He agreed to attend the meeting as my counsel. He also suggested we record the interaction, with notice, as is legal in our state. I agreed. But that was only part of my plan. The rest involved someone Jason never thought to fear. My grandson. Not as a pawn, but as a witness. I stopped by Ethan's school the day before the meeting, the way I used to bring cupcakes for his birthday parties when Lily was alive. I signed in at the office, waited in a small conference room, and watched my heart walk through the door in the shape of an 8-year-old boy with Lily's eyes. "Grandpa?" Ethan said, surprised. Then he flung himself at me so hard we both nearly fell over. "Mom's gone and Dad said you were busy." Busy. I hugged him tight. "I will never be too busy for you, kiddo." His teacher had given us 10 minutes. I used every second. "Ethan," I said carefully, "how are things at home?" He shrugged, twisting a thread on his sleeve. "Dad cries a lot when people are around. When they leave, he yells." "Does he yell at you?" "Sometimes." His voice dropped. "He says it's your fault we don't have more money now. He said Mom should have left things to him. Not an old man who's going to forget where he put it all." My teeth clenched. "Has he said anything about me coming over?" I asked. Ethan looked guilty. "He said you're not allowed until the lawyer fixes things. He said you might try to take the house and then we'd be homeless and it would be because you're selfish." The teacher glanced through the small window in the door, checking the time. "Ethan," I said, making my voice as steady as I could, "I want you to remember something. No matter what anyone says, I love you, and my job is to protect you. Sometimes that means I have to do things that look scary or mean. But I will never do anything to hurt you. Do you believe me?" His eyes filled with tears. "Yes." I pulled a small voice recorder out of my pocket and set it on the table where he could see it. "Tomorrow I'm going to talk to some people about how to help you and make sure you're safe," I said. "If the judge ever asks what's been happening, would you be able to tell the truth? Even if your dad gets mad?" He swallowed. "Yes." "That's my brave boy," I whispered. When he left, I sat alone in that little conference room until the secretary knocked to ask if I was all right. I told her I was. I lied. The next day I dressed in my best suit. It was the same one I'd worn at Lily's funeral, pressed and cleaned as if the cloth itself could forget what it had already seen. I slipped the recorder into my pocket, not to trick anyone, but to catch any threats that might be made in the open. David Barnes met me in the lobby of Cooper & Fields, his briefcase thick with documents. "You sure about this?" he asked. "I'm done being scared of a man who can't pay his own credit card bill," I replied. We stepped into the conference room together. Jason was already there, sitting at the far end of the table like he owned the building. He wore a navy suit that screamed money he didn't have and a watch I had indirectly paid for 3 Christmases ago. Beside him sat his lawyer, Ryan Cooper, all slicked-back hair and expensive cufflinks. "Frank," Jason said, smiling without warmth, "you look well." I took a seat opposite him. Barnes sat to my right. "Mr. Miller is my client," Barnes said calmly. "You can address me with any legal concerns." Jason's smile faltered for just a moment. Cooper cleared his throat. "We'll keep this simple," he said. "Given Mr. Miller's age and recent emotional strain, Jason has some concerns about his ability to manage co-ownership of the marital home and Lily's remaining assets. Our proposal is that Mr. Miller signs over his interest in the property and nominates Jason as executor of any estate matters to streamline the process. In return, Jason is willing to allow him supervised visitation with his grandson." Supervised. Barnes glanced at me. I nodded for him to proceed. "Mr. Cooper," Barnes said, opening his own folder, "before we consider any such proposal, we should probably review the existing legal framework. Your client has read Lily Reynolds' will, I assume?" Jason frowned. "I haven't seen anything yet. I figured we'd handle it here." "Ah." Barnes slid a copy of the will and the trust across the table. "Then this will be an educational afternoon." Jason snatched the top pages, eyes skimming the lines. I watched his expression carefully. Curiosity, confusion. Then, slowly, dawning panic. "What is this?" he demanded. "Why is everything going into a trust? Why is Frank in charge?" "Because your wife asked for it," Barnes replied. 2 years ago, after a medical emergency, she changed her will. She created a trust for Ethan with Mr. Miller as trustee. You have no direct access to her assets. The trust controls her half of the house, her life insurance, her accounts. Cooper's jaw clenched. You're saying my client has no rights here? That seems unlikely, given he's the surviving spouse and primary parent. He has rights, Barnes agreed. Limited ones. He may live in the house with Ethan, rent-free, as long as he treats Mr. Miller with respect, allows him access to Ethan, and does not threaten his financial security. That was Lily's condition. He tapped a paragraph with his pen. Specifically, he continued, Section 7, Clause C. If at any time my husband, Jason Reynolds, orders my father, Frank Miller, out of the house, denies him reasonable access to Ethan, or threatens to pursue legal or financial action to strip him of his assets or dignity, he forfeits any residential rights to the marital home, and my father, as co-owner and trustee, may reclaim full possession. The room went very quiet. Jason's face turned red, then white. She wouldn't, he started. She did, Barnes said softly. I was there. Jason slammed his fist on the table. This is ridiculous. She would never cut me out like that. You're lying. Do you deny, Barnes asked, his voice still calm, that on the night of the funeral you told Mr. Miller to get out of the house within 24 hours and promised to leave him penniless once you spoke to a lawyer? Jason's mouth opened and closed like a fish. That's hearsay, Cooper jumped in. Even if he did say something in his grief. You're right, Barnes said, folding his hands. On its own, that would be hearsay. Unless, of course, you intend to argue that Jason has at all times treated Mr. Miller with respect and has not tried to interfere with his finances, in which case we should probably introduce Exhibit B. Jason blinked. Exhibit what? Barnes reached into his briefcase and pulled out a small USB drive. Last week, he said, Mr. Miller received a letter from your office questioning his mental and financial competence. That letter has already been entered into our file. We also have witness statements from neighbors who heard him being ordered out of the house and a recorded conversation between Mr. Miller and Ethan's school counselor describing your behavior since Lily's death. If you would like to test Lily's clause in court, we are more than prepared. Jason turned to Cooper, voice rising. You told me this would be easy. Cooper looked less confident now. Jason, I wasn't aware of the revised will or any trust. Of course you weren't, Barnes cut in, because Jason never asked. He assumed the world would bend around him like it always does. But Lily was not naive. She saw the gambling, the missing money, the broken promises. She made choices to protect her son and her father. Jason stood abruptly, knocking his chair back. I want a recess, he snapped. I'm not agreeing to any of this. You don't have to agree, Barnes replied. It's already in effect. What happens now depends on how much more you want to lose. Jason glared at me. You set this up, he hissed. You and your pathetic sob story. You poisoned her against me. I met his eyes, steady. She wrote that will 2 years ago, I said. Long before the accident. Long before this meeting. The only person who poisoned anything was you. He took a step toward me, fists clenched, but Cooper grabbed his arm. Jason, the lawyer said sharply, sit down, right now. Jason yanked his arm free but didn't move closer. You can't take my house, he said through gritted teeth. I live there. Ethan lives there. You can't just throw us out on the street. I won't, I said. Ethan stays. You go. He stared at me, stunned. What? You heard me, I said. I'm not taking anything from Ethan. This trust is for him. I'm not touching the life insurance or Lily's accounts except to pay for his needs. The house, however, is another matter. I am exercising the clause Lily wrote. As of today, you no longer have the right to live there. Frank, Cooper warned, you can't just... Barnes slid another document across the table. This is a notice of termination of joint occupancy, he said. As co-owner and trustee, Mr. Miller has the legal right to issue it under the terms of the trust. You have 30 days to vacate the property, Jason. Jason laughed, high and disbelieving. You think you're going to move into my house? Live with my son? Over my dead body? Careful with your phrasing, Barnes murmured. Threats are not helpful. I took a breath. I'm not moving into your house, I said. I'm moving back into my daughter's home with my grandson. You are welcome to petition the court for visitation. But considering the evidence of your gambling, the debt collectors who've been calling, and the signed statement Lily left about the night you grabbed her by the arm hard enough to bruise it, I'm not sure how that will go. Jason's face drained of color. You wouldn't, he whispered. I already did, I said quietly. Child Services has copies. They will be visiting you this week. If they find everything in order, no drugs, no violence, no neglect, you will get supervised visitation. If they don't, I let the sentence hang. He lunged then, more out of panic than intent, but Cooper and Barnes both stepped between us, hands up. The receptionist burst in, alarmed by the noise. For a moment the room was all shouting, flailing arms, and scattered papers. Then it was just breathing, heavy, ragged breathing. Jason's chest rose and fell like he had run a mile. He sank back into his chair. You think you've won, he muttered. You think you're some kind of hero. No, I said. I think I'm a tired old man who loved his daughter and refuses to watch her son be dragged down by the same selfishness that destroyed her marriage. Barnes slid one last envelope across the table. Inside, he said, is a copy of Lily's personal letter to you, Jason. She asked that you receive it only if you contested the trust. You don't have to open it now. Jason snatched the envelope, stared at it, then shoved it into his pocket without looking. This isn't over, he said. I know, I replied, because after this meeting, you still have to go home and look Ethan in the eyes. That was the day everything shifted. The second hook? It wasn't the lawyer's clause or the notice of eviction. It was what I did with the power Lily had handed me, and how far I was willing to go to make sure Jason never hurt our boy again. Because I didn't stop at taking the house back. I went after the rest of his little kingdom. In the weeks that followed, Jason did exactly what people like him always do when the walls close in. He got desperate. First came the angry texts, long rambling messages about how ungrateful I was, how I was stealing his life, how Lily would hate me for this. I did not respond. I forwarded every single one to Barnes and saved them in the cloud. Then came the threats. You can't keep Ethan from me, he wrote. I'll just take him and disappear. Barnes sent those to the judge and Child Services. Suddenly Jason found himself having to report his whereabouts, submit to random inspections, and attend parenting classes if he wanted to keep even supervised visitation. Debt collectors called my house by mistake, looking for him. Apparently Jason had given them Lily's maiden name and my address years ago when applying for cards he never intended to pay. I recorded those calls too. When one of them mentioned he'd used Ethan's social security number on a store credit application, I nearly crushed the phone in my hand. Barnes contacted the police. Fraud investigations take time, but they do not forget. Meanwhile, the 30-day eviction clock ticked down. I visited the house often, not out of cruelty, but because I had work to do. Repairs Lily had begged Jason to fix for months. Banged up walls, leaking gutters. Ethan helped me paint his room a new shade of blue, the kind that looked like the sky he used to draw when he was 6. Jason glared from the doorway, forbidden by the temporary order from interfering. You're poisoning him against me, Jason hissed one afternoon while Ethan was in the backyard. He's my son. I don't have to say a word, I replied. He hears you just fine. On the 30th day, Jason finally moved out, not with dignity, not quietly. He screamed, slammed doors, threw a lamp down the front steps so hard it shattered. The neighbors watched from behind curtains and across lawns, pretending not to stare. When the last box was hauled into the back of his friend's pickup truck, he turned to me one more time. You're going to die alone, he spat. He'll hate you when he's older, you know, when he finds out what you did to his father. I looked past him to the window where Ethan stood, small hands pressed to the glass. Then I met Jason's eyes. "I didn't do anything to his father," I said. "You did." He left without another word. I changed the locks the same day. It took 6 months for the rest of Jason's lies to catch up with him. The credit fraud investigation turned into formal charges when 3 different stores provided security footage of him applying for lines of credit using Ethan's social security number. One bank found forged documents with my name on them, applications for loans I had never requested. His employer discovered he'd been borrowing from client accounts. They pressed charges, too. The night the police came to his crumbling apartment to arrest him, I was at home helping Ethan with his math homework. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "They're taking Dad," it read. "He's yelling he'll make you pay." Another message followed moments later, this one from Barnes. "Fraud, identity theft, embezzlement. Bail denied. I'll keep you updated." Ethan heard my phone vibrate, looked up and studied my face. "Is it about Dad?" he asked. "Yes," I said honestly. "We're going to talk about it tomorrow with your counselor. Tonight we're just going to finish these fractions." His pencil shook a little as he wrote, but he did not ask again. Some people will say I destroyed Jason's life. Maybe they are right. But I did not forge those signatures. I did not open those accounts. I did not grab Lily hard enough to leave bruises on her arm. I did not stand over a grieving old man in a kitchen full of funeral food and promise to leave him penniless. I just exposed the truth and let it do what truth always does when it is finally given light and time. The house is quiet now, but it is a different kind of quiet than the one that used to ache in my bones. There are soccer cleats by the front door, school projects covering the fridge, and a half-finished Lego spaceship on the coffee table. Ethan's laughter echoes down the hallways Lily once walked, and sometimes I swear I can almost hear her voice mixed in. Legally, I am his guardian now. The trust pays for his school, his clothes, his therapy. Every major decision I make, I read Lily's letter again and ask myself what she would want. Sometimes I get it wrong. Most days I hope I get it right. Jason will be in prison for a while. He sends letters occasionally, full of apologies and accusations in equal measure. I keep them in a box in the attic. Maybe one day Ethan will want to read them. Maybe he won't. As for me, I sleep better now. I sit on the back porch on summer evenings, the air thick with the smell of cut grass and charcoal from someone's grill down the street, and I listen to Ethan shout at fireflies. I think about the night Jason threw me out of this house and promised to leave me with nothing. He was wrong. I did not end up penniless. I ended up with exactly what mattered. A roof over my grandson's head, the truth on my side, and the knowledge that the man who tried to weaponize my grief will never again control our lives. Did I take my revenge? Yes. Did I also protect my family? That is what I ask myself every time I see Ethan smile. So tell me, was I right to use the law the way Lily intended, even knowing it would destroy her husband's life? Or did I go too far in making sure a man who threatened to leave me penniless ended up with nothing himself?
My grandpa's words really happened. I believe him. If you want more true tales stories like this, hit subscribe.